For decades, Sean "Diddy" Combs was the man who owned every room he walked into. Music, fashion, liquor, television, he'd turned his name into a billion-dollar lifestyle. But when federal agents in armored vests swarmed his Los Angeles and Miami mansions in March 2024, that power evaporated in seconds. It wasn't a random raid. It was the visible proof that a federal case had been building quietly for months, maybe years, while he was still hosting yacht parties and planning brand deals. People close to Diddy would later say he seemed stunned, pacing his property as agents seized hard drives, rifles, and stacks.
It was like a tester. Like, maybe you'll come play with me.
To the FBI, it was an extraction of evidence, of secrets, of a man's illusion of control. That was the moment Diddy finally realized the cameras pointed at him weren't for music videos anymore. They were for surveillance. The raid didn't come out of nowhere. For almost a year, the Department of Justice and Homeland Security had been running a multi-state investigation into sex trafficking, racketeering, and weapons violations tied to Diddy's inner circle. Court filings later revealed that the government had interviewed more than 50 witnesses, employees, former partners, assistants, describing what prosecutors called a decades-long enterprise of coercion and exploitation. When agents kicked in those doors, they found 3 AR-15-style rifles, parts with filed-off serial numbers, and electronic devices labeled with studio names and aliases. Each device was bagged and tagged. Every phone, every laptop, all potential vaults of what insiders referred to as his infamous freak-off tapes. The public learned about it in headlines the next morning. But according to investigators, the Bureau had already been quietly mapping his flights, his properties, even his private jet maintenance schedule. They'd built a digital shadow that followed him
You're gonna love this album.
And that's
You're gonna
why
love this
the mythology
album.
of Diddy, the untouchable mogul,
Man,
collided with the reality of federal oversight. Long before the mansions and private jets, Diddy was the face of relentless hustle. Born in Harlem in 1969, he climbed through the industry by sheer willpower. From an intern at Uptown Records to launching Bad Boy Entertainment, shaping the sound of 1990s hip-hop. He discovered and produced artists like the notorious B.I.G., Faith Evans, and 112. His brand wasn't just music. It was success itself. Champagne bottles, white suits, late-night TV charisma. Diddy turned ambition into a product. By the early 2000s, Sean John clothing, Ciroc vodka, and a $500 million fortune made him one of entertainment's most influential men. He was everywhere. Award shows, political fundraisers, the Met Gala, global luxury campaigns. He had built an empire so large it seemed immune to scrutiny. But that empire was also built on control. Control of image, of loyalty, of access. And in that control lay the seeds of his downfall. Because when you build your world on absolute power, you never notice who's watching until they're already inside the gates. By early 2023, the illusion was still intact, at least from the outside. Diddy was headlining parties, posing beside presidents, and calling himself Love, the man who had reinvented hip-hop's energy into positivity.
As the mother of a now 16-year-old.
Who I met backstage, who was...
Non-disclosure agreements and freak-off parties that blurred into coercion. That's when the Bureau started paying attention. It began quietly. Financial crimes analysts flagging transfers from shell companies tied to his entertainment ventures, inconsistencies in travel manifests, whispers from employees who had left Bad Boy, agents cross-referenced civil suits with hotel records and flight logs. When Cassie Ventura filed her explosive 2023 lawsuit alleging sexual assault, trafficking, and years of abuse, the dominoes began to fall. The case was settled in 24 hours, but the headlines gave investigators a map. Every allegation came with a date, a location, and potential witnesses. For most celebrities, lawsuits bring bad press. For Diddy, they brought federal subpoenas. March 2024. While Diddy hosted private events in Miami, Homeland Security finalized warrants on 3 of his homes. The order listed trafficking, racketeering, and weapons violations. The same week, insiders noticed he'd stopped posting the constant luxury selfies that defined his brand. He was spending more time in Los Angeles, moving between properties, always surrounded by security. To the outside world, that looked like wealth. To federal agents, it looked like a man pacing inside his own cage. When the raids hit, they didn't just seize electronics. They took servers, camera archives, and financial ledgers from his liquor and clothing businesses. One witness told Rolling Stone the agents knew exactly what rooms to go to, a sign they already had the floor plans and digital entry logs weeks in advance. That's how the FBI works when they're no longer gathering rumors. They're closing in. The morning after the raids, news helicopters circled over Diddy's mansion. Photos of agents carrying evidence boxes hit Twitter within minutes. Hashtags like Now Diddy Raid and Freak-Off tapes trended globally. To the younger generation, it wasn't disbelief. It was confirmation.
Their newest
For years,
fifth studio
Gen Z
record
audiences had
album,
treated Diddy as a
Love
mean
Off
of
the Grid,
excess,
drops today.
a billionaire relic of a different moral era. Now, the receipts had arrived. Sponsors pulled back. Karak Distribution quietly froze promotional budgets. Artists under his label began removing his name from bios. It was the Hollywood equivalent of a fire alarm. And everyone inside started running. Behind the scenes, Diddy's legal team scrambled to control damage. Lawyers requested copies of seized footage, argued violations of privacy, and petitioned for bail. But what none of them knew was that the FBI had already collected hundreds of hours of digital surveillance. Flight paths, text backups, encrypted chats, all cataloged under Operation Afterparty. The code name later revealed in court filings, Diddy wasn't being accused anymore.
I ain't gonna lie.
He was being tracked. For someone who spent 30 years controlling
I've been holding
his
a lot of shit in lately.
silence was the real
We are here in New York
The man
to
once
announce
known
a
for
historic
shouting into
arrest
microphones was
across
now
a
staring
wide
at a federal
sweeping
affidavit
criminal
thicker than a
enterprise
movie
that
script.
envelops.
Agents had been watching him while he watched himself, through cameras, social feeds, and phone logs. That's the moment power turns into paranoia. Because when the FBI is already watching, the only thing left to perform for is the evidence file.
Let's just here and there, y'all are not working together the right way. We're losing.
The footage.
On the morning of the 16th, federal agents moved in on Diddy's Manhattan hotel suite. The mogul who once flew private to receive awards was now standing in a hallway in handcuffs, surrounded by agents reading out charges that sounded like fiction. Racketeering, sex trafficking, transporting for prostitution, and possession of illegal firearms. In the indictment, prosecutors described an organized network built around fear and silence. Former staffers had flipped.
Listen
Assistants
to me.
had given
I'm gonna
statements,
get off the phone
and
right
digital
now,
evidence had painted a
and
timeline.
I am going to let you perfect.
One agent told NBC News that Diddy's own phones told the story better than any witness ever could. That's when it hit. Him, the same devices he used to record his life, were now evidence against him. He pleaded not guilty, but the judge wasn't convinced. Citing the risk of witness intimidation and flight, the court denied bail. Sean Combs, net worth nearly $1 billion, spent that night in a federal detention center cell with a metal bed frame and no music.